Okay. Kia ora koutou, no mai hoki mai, ki tēnei hui, welcome to the meeting of the Wastewater Treatment Plant and Landfill Joint Committee meeting. Members are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed and to please use your microphones. I'll invite members to recite our karakia. Toru wha, whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā tā tara ki tai. E hi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Go to Hoirangi. Anyway, moving on. The chair has biases. I apologise for those. But if anyone's watching Te Matatini, well done for tuning in for us. Can I then move on to apologies? Are there any apologies? There are no apologies. So then we will move on to public forum. We have a request for public forum. They're not here presently, so I think the best course of action is to proceed on to the next item, and we'll manage it as best. Oh yes, of course. We do, however, thank you to Councillor Duncan, has received a letter from Mari Wright, who wanted to have the letter tabled in the minutes. I have received it today. I am mindful that there is language in here with regards to the role of Wellington Water staffers, so I'm going to note that. But I will incorporate it into the minutes with leave of the meeting. Is there any objection? There is none. We'll put that into the minutes. Let us move, therefore, on to conflict of interests. Are there any conflicts of interests? Notification of extraordinary business. No notifications of extraordinary business. Right, confirmation of minutes. Sorry.
Do we have a space for general business? Or was that extraordinary?
That would be an extraordinary item, yeah. But that would have to, there are standing orders for that reason, to allow us to provide notice for those items that come up. Those are usually around about 24 hours notice at the very least.
Okay, so can I just table it for something to come to the next week?
Yeah, we can talk about that after this meeting and address it. Or do you want to? I don't want to talk about the substance of this one because obviously that would defeat the purpose of putting up notice. But I note that that you're foreshadowing that there is an item that you want to have discussed in general.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Foreshadowing. Thank you.
No worries. So where are we? Oh yes, confirmation of minutes. We have asked to confirm the minutes of the joint committee meetings. They were held on the 26th of November 2024. I move that we confirm the minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fila, thank you very much. We have proposed, yes, point of order?
Just with the I seconded the motion. Not for non-attendance.
I think that that's a reasonable. It's technically, you're technically correct. I don't think there's any issue in terms of, disorder by making a change of that nature. It's a slight change, and I'll take that by leave of the meeting. Is there any objection to that approach? No. Okay. Got another one, Councillor Duncan.
No, that's.
Okay. With no changes being made, other than the one change by consent, I'll put the motion which has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Again, abstentions. I believe that's carried. Let's move to item 7, the Joint Committee Wastewater Treatment Plant Report. 1st of October 2024 to January the 21st, 2025. That was my birthday. I will move the motion, being that the Joint Committee received the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duncan, thank you very much. We will have Officer from, is it Olivia? Oh, sorry, who's the staffer we're leading out with the Olivia? I assume you're the staffer to initially start the conversation. And then I'll allow any comments from Wellington Water. Thank you very much for coming along. Please take the opportunity when it comes up to you guys to introduce yourselves as well, if possible. Olivia, please.
Kia ora, councillors. This is the normal quarterly report from Wellington Water, part of the standard process for the Joint Venture Committee. We've got a couple of new faces here from Wellington Water today, so I'll hand over to these guys to introduce themselves and welcome to take any questions as you see fit.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tiago Gopalan. I'm acting GM while Jeremy is away.
Steve Hutchison, Wellington Water, I'm a regular.
Hi, I'm Jomar. I'm the acting head of wastewater contracts on Blair's behalf.
Mike,
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just make the point, committee members, that the reason that the usual staff aren't here from Wellington Water is that they are currently overseas as part of Wellington City Council's sludge minimisation facility. They're looking at sludge plants overseas, which is why we have the excellent ring-ins for them today.
thank you, Mike. I assume you've got nothing else to add. Items are on notice that have been read, so any questions from committee members? Councillor Fiddle?
I'd like to acknowledge all the many extra links and actual viable links that were in the report that we could click on, the external reports. That was really useful. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about point 9 with regards to the ammonium nitrate issue that has been ongoing at the plant. So I note that there are 2 reports here, one from Veolia and the other one from Lutra. Can you please just, in the first instance, clarify? I just wanted to clarify who the report, particularly the Lutra one, was that going to Greater Regional Wellington Council to as requested by them because of the spike in ammonia?
Yep, so as a part of our consent, if we have exceeded the ammonia limits for 5 consecutive times, we need to undertake a monitoring and technology report, which is what Lutra have undertaken. So that report goes to the Regional Council as a compliance for a resource consent. Yep.
Thank you, Jomar. So was that the intention to identify what had happened, I guess the cause, and then to look at what can be done to rectify it? Is that the gist of the intention behind the reports?
Yeah. So the intention of the report is to look if there's any operational changes that we have made to ensure or to make the plant to go back into the nitrification process, which has been suggested in the report, and then if there's any requirement of potential upgrades in the short term, as required by the consent. The report concluded that operational changes should be able to be sufficient to return to the natural process, and no plant upgrades is recommended in the short term.
Thank you. Next question is, why do actually both these reports completely ignore key factors that could actually be contributing to the ammonia issue, such as the 12 sludge incidences that happened from about March 04 to April 04, as well as it seemed like there was no testing of the water, no records or data of testing in both reports, and also no mention too of the unprecedented algae situation or excessive accumulation that we have going on at Titahi Bay Beach. Shouldn't those have been investigated and included?
The relevant factors were investigated and reported on. The sludge carryovers would not have been a relevant factor for the ammonia increasing. So the Lutra report has identified the cause as being the amount of aeration able to be provided, and so the cause has been identified, or the issue has been identified and is currently being worked on to be resolved. There has been a separate environmental assessment which was undertaken, which looked at the results in the receiving environment, 200 metres either side of the discharge point, and assessed those against the guidelines. So that was undertaken as a separate report by an ecologist.
I didn't see any mention of that in the report in case I missed it. So just so we're clear, Steve, with regards to the 12, and I think 12 sludge incidences in a 2-month period it's pretty significant. I don't actually recall specifically hearing about that at the meeting. We could have, but oh, by the way, I'm getting this data from the Greater Regional Wellington Compliance Report that you uploaded in this report. So the data or this information about those is in there. And it also, so here's what I'd like clarity on. If the bacteria that is used to break down the ammonia nitrogen, that is in the aeration basin in the sludge, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There's a portion of the sludge in the aeration basin is specifically works on nitrifying. Yeah.
So if we had at least 12 incidences of sludge going out into the natural environment, into the coastal area, wouldn't it be sort of plausible, and it's sort of just before the spikes happen, wouldn't there be some kind of link that the loss of those bacteria into, which by the way, I also noticed that there's no records of from about December to April because the flow meter had some kind of electrical fault. So we don't actually know the accurate reading. That was also in the Greater Regional Compliance Report, Steve, that data there.
Yeah,
So, sorry.
There might be a timing misunderstanding here. The Regional Council report was for the previous year.
But it said the dates of 2024. So the dates I'm speaking about, Steve, are the actual dates leading up to the spike in ammonia.
Okay, we haven't been able to identify the exact cause of why the ammonia dropped out. It's unlikely that the loss of some sludge through those sludge carryover events was the trigger, because the quantum of sludge lost was relatively small.
How would you know that if there was no recording because the flow meter was faulty from December until April 2024?
I'm not sure which flow meter you're referring to be honest.
Which what, sorry?
I'm not sure which flow meter you're referring to.
It was the one that measures the outflow from the treatment plant.
We have very good measurement of the inflow to the treatment plant.
Yeah, I noticed that in
and-
that report as well.
yeah.
That was investigated.
And that's the key measure for what comes in goes out. So the old outflow meter has been a difficult instrument, but it's not as reliable or accurate as the inflow meters. So we do measure the concentration of sludge in the aeration basin on a regular basis, and there was no material change from those carryovers.
Okay. Sorry, you can interject.
Can I ask a sub just in regards to this line of questioning? And it's just, it may help to clarify for me as well. Obviously, during the plant, the bacteria is in an aerobic state, which helps with the nitrification process. Any sludge that carries with it bacteria that would be part of that processing as part of a discharge event would not be in an aerobic state once it's been released, because it's sitting in the wild. It's not being artificially aerated. So is it possible that there is still some bacteriological activity, and if so, is it of a degree that is similar to inside the inside the treatment plant?
The aeration basin has aerobic zones and anoxic zones. So the central part of the aeration basin actually goes down to very low dissolved oxygen, so that for the denitrification process, where nitrate gets converted to nitrogen gas and oxygen, I don't believe it would be significant, the change of the oxygen demand of that sludge in the receiving environment.
I'm just going to talk just in layman's terms here of how I interpreted these reports, and feel free to clarify or correct me. 12 discharge incidents within a 2-month period, and this is March 04 to April 04. The spikes in ammonia went up from May 04. So there's a great loss of sludge going out into the environment. So in my mind too, I'm seeing that's potentially a great loss of that bacteria that is needed to actually break down any future waste that comes into the treatment plant. And so all of this has kind of potentially been lost in those 12 incidences. Ammonia nitrogen has started to go up. I'm thinking because, well, there's not as much bacteria now in the aeration basins to actually break down this nitrogen, and it continues to go up. And it hasn't really, I mean, we've got the stats in that report. I guess the next thing that I'm also concerned about is that since then, and this was raised at the last meeting, we have had huge, excessive amounts of algae at Titahi Bay Beach, and particularly on the side closest to the outfall and all along. Now, my understanding is ammonia nitrogen feeds algae. It makes it bloom. It makes it excessive. And if future wastewater discharges from the treatment plant have not been able to break down that nitrogen, therefore, the amount of ammonia nitrogen that's going out into the ocean is high levels. Wouldn't it make sense that that is what's feeding and causing that algae bloom on the beach?
Okay, to the first point, the amount of sludge that was lost was not significant. The vast bulk, the majority of the sludge was retained in the aeration basin. So the experts we've had look at it did not draw a conclusion of that being a factor for the nitrification being lost.
Just to speak to that, because there were 12 events, and there, as I said, that instrument that measures how much was discharged wasn't working until after April. So I don't know if you estimated how much was lost or not, but anyway, sorry, continue. There was another thought. It's passed.
Yep. We have asked an ecologist whether the ammonia would have been material for the algae that's been reported at Titahi Bay, and his opinion was that no, it wouldn't have been. That natural factors would have been the dominant issue for the algae. The concern with the ammonia is more about the toxicity that can affect aquatic life, not so much in terms of generating the big algae which we've seen over the summer.
Okay, so in terms of water sampling, what was done to see the marine coastal environment was that what you mentioned earlier?
So there've been weekly samples taken 200 metres either side of the discharge point to monitor the ammonia.
So for regular beach sampling, we undertake monthly sampling of our coastal marine area as a part of our consent, and then we do have a weekly sample of the treated wastewater going out to the treatment plant for ammonia monitoring.
So you've got a sample of what's gone out from the treatment plant, like sort of within the treatment plant environment, and then you also sample around the outfall.
Correct.
Right. Thank you. So with just regards to what you said about the nitrogen and the ammonia nitrogen, I agree that the toxicity levels would be not helpful to marine life, but also, I mean, it does seem like a bit of a coincidence that ammonium nitrate feeds algae, and that algae, huge problem. And if you look in the minutes of, these past minutes, you'll actually see the photos of Titahi Bay Beach. It is very excessive. It covered the whole beach. There was even some parts caused like quicksand. You'd sort of be sinking into it. But what I was going to say is that algae is also, that amount can suffocate marine life as well. It takes a lot of oxygen out of the water, and it's polluting. I mean, it's natural, but it's an eyesore.
So as a part of our ammonia investigation, we have, as Steve mentioned, we have commissioned ecologists to review assess the effects of the environment of this ammonia exceedance. So the conclusion of the report was the ammonia levels coming from the treatment plant has a low impact to the toxicity. And a follow-up query that we have raised to the ecologist was, does it affect on the seaweed biomass that we are seeing in the Titahi Bay Beach? He concludes that the seaweed biomass, the variation in the seaweed biomass, is due to a recent weather pattern rather than the impact coming from the treatment plant. This is because of the, as per the 2019 dispersion modeling, wherein they would see how the treated wastewater is dispersed in the environment. We should have enough dispersion and dilution in the receiving environment that it shouldn't affect the effluent or the receiving water quality in terms of ammonia nitrogen limits.
I do, but I'm mindful that I've taken on.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. If it were useful, I'm just looking at this advice now from Stantec. I'm wondering if it's useful after the meeting. I could possibly circulate it.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sorry.
I just.
Sorry. I'll let Porirua go after you, so please continue,
Yep, sure,
Councillor
thanks.
Fiddle.
Thank you, Councillor.
I don't want to disrupt your train of thought because it's very interesting. Did you want to,
I did.
with the leave of the chair?
Well, I've directed
Okay, cool.
that
All right.
Councillor Fiddle carry on, and then to you, Porirua.
Okay.
So let that happen, and then we'll come back afterwards if you have any more questions.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier, and this is to Steve, that you didn't think that it was a significant amount that got discharged during March and April. You didn't think those 12 incidences, yet quite a few of them, at least I think maybe 6, went beyond the 200 metre zone. So they spread quite far. Do you have something to say to that?
Yeah, my comment about significant was in relation to the amount of bacteria retained within the treatment plant.
I guess it would be really helpful to know how you actually can measure and know that there is enough bacteria in there to break down the nitrogen. Like how do you know that since from May onwards it's spiked so high?
We are able to easily measure the amount of total amount of bacteria. What's more difficult is measuring the exact types of bacteria within the aeration basin. And so it's the conclusion from the Lutra report was that there was not quite enough aeration to sustain those ammonia oxidizing bacteria. And so they've adjusted the operational settings, put more air into that front part of the aeration zone to encourage them to come back more.
And so you're hoping that dissolving the oxygen, that method will help to repopulate? Do you think that would be, is that enough?
We're hoping so, and we're looking at alternative ways to supplement if it's not successful. It's getting the right conditions for the different types of bacteria is what the goal is. So
are you considering reseeding, putting in more bacteria from other?
There are 2 options which we're looking into. One is to take bacteria from another treatment plant and introduce them, and the other is to purchase some specific bacteria from a bacteria supplier. So we're just looking into those at the moment. The first preferred option is to get the conditions right and see if they'll naturally reseed themselves.
Okay, I'll leave it for some other people to ask questions. Thanks.
Porirua Kelly.
Thank you for your answers and for your questions, Kathleen. I'm no scientist, and all of the language that you're using makes sense when you ask and you answer. But essentially, for me, in layman's terms, and I think too for any of our residents who may be listening in, the biggest concern that we have, and I hear that you know about it, is that on our beach we have the whole beach is covered, it washes up and the whole beach is covered, instead of sand, it's mounds of what looks like grass clippings. And then you get the kids all really very interested to understand what it is. But when you stamp on it, it is like sinky sand, and you just, like you go right into it. So the questions that she's asked is, that Kathleen has asked, is really interesting, because in my lifetime, I've never seen this happen. So are you saying that this ammonia that has been leaked out into, what do we call them? The discharges out into our waterways, is that caused a mixture of this ammonia and whatever the bacteria and all of those scientific things you're talking about? Is that what has caused this? Because what I can say is that, well, for a few months it was really bad. It is looking like it's getting a bit better. And now what's been replaced is these big fat white jellyfish. But the green stuff is going away. So where I'm coming to, or what I'm trying to understand, I walked on the beach this morning.
Sorry. Is
Sorry.
there a question here? I just want to make sure there's a question here.
So sorry about that. So what I'm asking you is, can you confirm that the things that Kathleen has been talking about is what's caused this, and that by way of a solution, that you are onto it to ensure that it's fixed and that it doesn't happen again?
So we don't believe that the ammonia issue is directly causing the increase in algae that's been observed over the last summer. And as Mike said, we'll circulate some advice, which is the basis for that. It's probably worth noting that the other 3 treatment plants we have in Wellington are not designed to remove ammonia at all, and we don't see the similar seaweed type growth around those outfalls.
So it's not seaweed, eh? It's like little cut up grass.
It's commonly referred to as sea moss, I think is what everyone's calling it.
Yeah, that is what it looks like. So, do you have a solution though, or do you have an explanation, Steve, of what you think it is then? Because, like I said, I've never seen this.
I don't personally, but the ecologist's advice was that it's be a natural causes.
Okay, so I'm in my late 60s, and I've lived here all my life, and I've never seen it, so I don't know how natural that is.
I understand Mike's going to go.
Thanks, Mr. I was just going to say, we'll circulate this advice. It's from a herpetologist, I think, where he concludes that the variation in seaweed biomass on the beach is the result of recent weather patterns. So I'll circulate this so you've got all of the advice and how he's built up that.
That would be
advice.
really helpful, because we're inundated by queries from residents, and even when I'm walking on the beach, we'll have people I'll have people that are stopping me and asking what's causing this, and I just go, well, I don't know.
I'll talk to Hannah as well. Talk about some public comms around that so people get the message.
I think that would be really useful. Thanks, Mike.
Did you have anything else, Bobby Kelly? Councillor Fillall? Yep, that's fine. Actually, do you mind before you start? I have a follow-up to your earlier line of questioning. So just to be clear here, irrespective of how much discharge of sludge that has occurred, as reported by Councillor Fillall in the reports that's actually in public, the issue of ammonia would still be an issue if there were no discharges of sludge.
Yes.
Okay. I'll go back to you.
So just want to go back to the weather pattern that you mentioned. I think it was you, Joma. So is that in terms of what? Is it the cold? Is it the heat? What makes the algae bloom?
it's getting beyond our expertise, and so we will.
I mean, you
circulate
mentioned the weather pattern, so if hot or cold.
I think to answer that question, the report that has been commissioned is going to be distributed around this by someone who's a specialist in that particular area. Someone said earlier that they're not scientists. I was trained as a scientist, master's degree and everything, and even I'm having trouble trying to deal with the subject matter from time to time. That is the nature of science. It's why we have specialists to deal with these specific targets. So I would await to see what the wording and the stringency of the research that was undertaken in that report.
I guess I just want to add that it's been through all kinds of weather. We've been through winter, spring and summer with this problem. So, I'd be interested to read what that is as well. You mentioned before that at other treatment plants that ammonia isn't removed. Isn't this a consent condition for Porirua treatment plant that the...
It's become a consent condition in the new consent. It was never previously a consent condition. So generally for the other coastal treatment plants there is no requirement, no consent conditions to remove ammonia.
Okay, interesting. So why do you think it is in the new consent? Is it quite a significant issue then to input, or what's your thoughts on that?
The issue was traversed at the hearing, and the ecologist's advice that it would be appropriate to maintain ammonia removal for the aquatic toxicity purpose.
Any more?
Look, I guess I'll just finish with just to wrap this up. I just want to make it really clear that I am quite concerned about what's going on. I'm concerned that in both those reports there wasn't any mention of those sludge events, even to say, because if we look at the timeline from March 04 to April 04, we had 12 incidences of sludge incidences. From May, we start to have a spike in ammonia that continues to go on. So it just... And then we're hearing that nitrogen and ammonia nitrogen are things that feed algae, and now there is an algae huge problem that carried on from May. So
I'm happy to go back to the authors of that report and put that question to them to get their considered opinion.
Let's consider that a request from this committee to have that information furnished for the committee members. Would that be suitable?
Yeah, thank you.
Porirua, Kelly.
Just really quickly, when you do come back to us with the answers, well, I don't know all the scientific language in that. Can it have enough detail where it's not just blamed to climate change? Because that seems to be the easiest answer to anything that's different now. So if I can just put that in there. Thank you, Steve.
You may speak, but I was just going to say before it may resolve. If I record the reading that you've read from this report that is going to be circulated to members of the committee, it regards weather events, not climate events. And I'm very much a stickler for the difference between climate and weather. But is there anything else to add to that?
That was the nature of what I was going to say. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
That's my limited scientific knowledge coming to the fore there. Is there any other questions? Okay. I wanted to ask just around the feedback loop that comes with this work around ammonia. Obviously, this will remain an issue that the board, this committee will want to be assured of, not just because of the resource consent issues that are applied in it, but that the progress is actually meaningful in terms of resolving this issue. So I'm expecting that in the next report, this will still be part of it as a commentary item. Is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely.
And obviously at that stage as well, please again come prepared to look at alternative solutions, or at least disclose those alternative solutions if the recommendations do not. I was going to say bear fruit, but I don't think we want anything to bloom. Anyway, we'll leave that there. Does anybody want to give comment? No. And notwithstanding if you've already given comment on stuff already, I'm happy to go to. That's fine, then please continue. This is the time for questions, so there's no limit on speaking time, that's all I'm just saying.
So I would just like to say that I'll probably put through just a few extra questions through to the chair. Just things like, it's just I've just thought as well, like, why was there so many incidences that happened in that 2-month time frame? 12 is, it seems a lot. It would be good to know what processes happened there, just some other things. Anyways, I'm just foreshadowing that I'll put through some more.
Okay, noting the
further
foreshadowing of that.
questions.
I know that some of those, that with regards to sludge discharge has been covered in previous meetings, but it would be good to have that request responded to as well. Any other comments? Comments rather than questions? Okay, I think we got to the point where we can complete this item. But before I do, I just want to again thank Wellington Water for coming in and speaking to the item. Please be, assured that conscientious members of this committee, all of us really, do get these concerns from residents. That does require a bit of communication to the public. It does also require a bit of clarity around this as well. There is always a risk of conflation when it comes to these types of issues, which is why great delicacy must be taken in terms of addressing each of these issues one by one in a way that Joe Public can understand. I'm going to put the so we've moved it, we've seconded it. I'm going to sorry, Councillor Philo.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I actually meant that I was done with the ammonia 0.9 topic.
Right.
Yeah,
So you have questions relating to this item that aren't around ammonia?
No, I have further ones within the report.
Okay, then please let's get through those, and then we can square it off.
Thank you. So it was point 19. I wanted to talk to point 19. So I read through both documents or both links as well regarding the review, the contract review with Veolia in regards to the wastewater treatment plants. And it was good to see the different, I guess the different issues that were highlighted and the solutions that have been put forward. So it's good to see that proactive approach. I did note that one of the issues of non-compliance that was highlighted was around staffing issues, inadequate training, understaffing, leading to delayed responses and issues. There was a number of things actually that mentioned to staff, and it's while their approach, Veolia's approach seems like a good one with having the global training in place to address this. I did want to point out that this issue was raised 2 meetings ago, and rather than acknowledge that, it seemed, and this was raised by myself and Porirua Kelly, around staff capabilities, and now it's in black and white in this report, but rather than acknowledging it then, it seemed like a almost personal attack was put on Porirua Kelly, and we were almost told that in the meeting that, kind of nothing to see here, that everything's fine. And then following that, one of our emails was leaked from here, from Porirua City Council, one of our council emails, to a reporter who then proceeded to write a number of stories that had no real relevance to what the real issue is, which is what's been addressed here, which is the staff. So I just want to point that out and say, I'm glad that it's been addressed now. It's a shame that it had to go through that, and it's not Veolia at all. They were great to deal with. They actually met with us. They addressed a lot of the concerns that we had, and I like the approach that they're taking now. But my point is, this was raised 2 meetings ago, and the way that it panned out is very unfortunate. Now we have it in black and white.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as a comment as opposed to a question, but thank you very much, Councillor Philo. Any other comment on this item? How are you, Kelly?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for, I'm thinking that even though the article that went in the paper didn't address really what the whole issue was, instead they made it about race, which it had nothing to do with at all. But I just wanted to say thank you that now we do have it in black and white, and that I wasn't the things that I had been told that they were happening, and now we have it, the evidence to say that it was happening. But I think rather than gloat, I think the main factor here is that we're doing better, and that's all we want. That's all we want to do is to fix it, to make sure that we are looking after our environment. So I want to thank you, Steve, for the report. Even though it wasn't in lots of parts, it wasn't really plain English, but but thank you.
Thank you, Porirua Kelly. In the light of thank yous, I also just think that it should be noted that the work that has been undertaken by Wellington Water and Council in terms of the improvements to provide a alternate electrical generator capacity for when there is power outages is a good example of where the advocacy around this table has led to a project that actually is going to help provide certainty to the community around the provision of that piece of infrastructure when there is a significant event like a power cut. So I wish to pass on, and I'll say this on behalf of the committee, thank you to Wellington Water for that particular piece of maki. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, I just have to respond to the comments that were made about the 2 meetings ago, because I sat in that meeting and I felt distinctly uncomfortable with the level of racism that was involved in it at the time. And I wished at the time I had raised it as a point of order, because I felt it was directly aimed at race and was very unfortunate.
Noted. And
Noted.
I don't want to go any further on this. Okay, Councillor Feller, be mindful that we're not going to have a debate over what happened 2 meetings ago on this session.
Yeah, no, I just want to respond to that.
I just said I do not want to go over again.
I'm not going
items.
over it again.
Be very careful of what you say. I will be listening very carefully.
I'd just like to say that I was also in that meeting, and there was nothing racial said, but people's assumptions and perceptions are their own, and that is a reflection on how they perceive things.
I'm going to leave that at that point. I think everybody's got their chance to have their say. We will leave it there for this. I'm now going to put the motion. I'm going to put the motion to approve this report. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, abstentions. The motion is carried. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Item 7.2, Spicer Landfill Joint Committee Update, October to December 2024. I'm going to move the motion, being that the Joint Committee received this report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Officer comment, David Down. David, if you would like to lead out, and then we will assume that the items on notice have been read and covered, so you don't need to go back over that. Anything additional would be appreciated.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou, councillors. A couple of items, a couple of things to mention that have arisen subsequent to the report being authored. The first one is just some notice for the committee on the end market for the batteries, which we've been collecting. So last meeting I raised or brought to the committee's attention that we started collecting batteries at our main reception downstairs, Cannons Creek Pool, and also the library. The question was put, where do the batteries actually end up? So the answer to that, so the company which is collecting the batteries for us is a company called Phoenix, and Phoenix are sending those batteries to end markets in South Korea and Japan, where the materials recovered from the batteries, nickel, cadmium, lithium, nickel, metal, zinc, are used in the manufacture of new batteries. So there is recoverable material in there which has been extracted. The second thing I wanted to raise subsequent to the report being authored was with regards to an odour event on the 16th of February, so that's the weekend before last. We had 38 odour complaints received on Saturday, and a number of other complaints received on the Sunday, the 17th. And Greater Wellington did send out a duty officer on Saturday, the 16th in the evening, that duty officer took a ride around the Tawa neighbourhood, received further odour complaints live while he was out there through our after-hours contact centre. Last thing on Friday last week, we received a request from Greater Wellington Council asking for a please explain, what we call a please explain letter. So we are submitting that to them by the end of business tomorrow. We're just honing in on some gas field operation, which would probably have been tightened up a little bit with a number of gas wells which were disconnected for operations to take place, and coincident with the odour event that we had the weekend before last. So we will submit that full explanation to Greater Wellington by the end of business tomorrow, and then it's up to Greater Wellington whether they wish to take that even further. Apart from that, Mr Chair, that's just 2 verbal updates, and I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Okay, before I go out, and I noted Representative Allen, just on that item with regards to the 16th of February, that also will be incorporated into the subsequent committee's report of the operations as well, won't it? Okay.
Yes.
Representative Allen, the floor is yours.
I was actually just going to ask if we could also receive a copy of that tomorrow when it goes to Greater Wellington Regional Council.
I think it's a reasonable suggestion.
Sorry, was that the request from Greater Wellington and our response back?
Please explain your
Yes,
explanation.
certainly, yep.
Yeah.
Couple of questions. I sent a few questions through by email prior to the meeting. One was there's nothing in the report for the resource consent update. Normally you report on that every month. So has something happened that we're not aware of?
No, my apologies. I was to speak briefly to that. No, the reason it's not in there is because nothing has happened. We are continuing work on further detail in the alternatives assessment. Other than that, the consent remains basically on hold.
The other question was around the recent odour, and you've just talked about the 16th, but the recent odour issue started before the 16th. It started probably the week that you started digging cell 3A, or the new cell, and it has increased. So is there a connection between the increase in odour, because it has absolutely stunk every night? I sleep with my windows open and will often wake up at 2 a.m. with this awful odour just permeating through the house. So is there a connection with the digging of the new cell?
Notwithstanding the point that that would be related to a period beyond the current report, but I'm sure that you can respond to it and ensure that that is also covered in the commentary for the subsequent report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will make a response. So with regards to cell 3A, the construction of the cell proper, as shown in the pictures I've put in the report, hasn't actually commenced yet. The period during which you're speaking about was the construction of a sediment pond downhill of where the cell will be constructed. However, during that period, there has been excavation of extremely old waste, a trench approximately 2 metres deep, 2 metres wide, and around 30 metres long. That trench forms the very, very toe, what we call the shear key, that will provide support for the northern batter of the new cell. So there was a question in our minds as to whether the excavation of that very old waste may cause some odour issues while it was being excavated. The contractor was on alert to just make sure there wasn't any serious odour coming out of it. It seems as though it was fairly low level, if any at all, very, very old waste. But we did have the Biox cannon, the odour cannon on hand just in case. What I'd like to do for the next meeting, Mr Chair, is just table a timeline of where we were up to in the construction of cell 3A and attempt to put in coincident odour complaints or any other. For example, we have our readings from our Omnis system, which was checked on Saturday at the Saturday 16th at the time, and did actually reveal that we had some elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide at the boundary itself, quite easily seen on the actual Omnis interface, which would lead us to suggest it was probably more along the lines of gas rather than rubbish. However, I can table that with a bit of a timeline for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So, given that you said that what was happening, the work was just digging that trench, when you start constructing the actual cell, will you be disconnecting gas mains, and do we have the luxury of looking forward to more odour?
Off the top of my head, there are gas wells in that vicinity on the existing northern slope, so there is a possibility of having to disconnect gas wells, yes. Whether that means we will be experiencing elevated rates of fugitive gas would depend on how very carefully controlled the connection and disconnection of those wells is, and also the weather conditions in which we do it.
Sorry to jump in again, Mr. Representative Allen. Would there not be a benefit of having council proactively communicating with particular residents, potentially affected residents, that this is work is going on and the particular times around it, so as to give some certainty around what may be going on in that context, rather than waiting till after the fact?
Yes, we can do that. What I'd like to do actually is to be able to put notice out through our website or via Antenno that if we're going to conduct a significant piece of operation, which might be, for example, the disconnection of gas wells, that we do notify and be able to say within a certain period it's likely to happen, or we're going to be doing whatever it is.
To be fair, we did get notification for the week beginning the 3rd of February that they would be working on the new cell area, but that only goes to some people on the email list, people who are on the email list, I mean, and also people still have a tendency to complain when the odour hits. They don't always remember that there's work going on, and they don't see that as justification either to have their houses stunk out.
So that's all very good points.
Yeah, but it is good to know in advance.
But it would be rather prudent of a council to communicate proactively in any case.
Yeah.
Sorry, any other questions?
Yes, one more question. The big fans that you know, I think in your report you said they're still being tested or set up, and so where are we with that now?
I regret to say that the fan is out of commission at the moment. The radiator, the cooling radiator for the engine broke down and has to be replaced. It's being done under warranty, but it wasn't operating for that weekend which we've just experienced. If I may, Mr. Chair, that with regards to any forward notice we might be able to give of potential for an operation to create odour, it would still be valuable for us to have complaints anyway. That would tell us that if we had put measures in place proactively to try and mitigate it, whether those measures had actually worked or not. So being aware of it, but still complaints would be helpful.
So I have a sub-question with regards to the fan. The repair of the fan, what is the time frame of that repair?
I don't have an answer for that. I can get that from Enviro Waste.
Representative Allen, and then I'll come to Porirua Kelly.
When did the fan go out of action?
About 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Okay, thank you.
Porirua Kelly.
That's under warranty though, eh? So it's not a cost to the ratepayer. My question is, and thank you for your report, in your view, do you believe that the things that we're putting in place to mitigate particularly the odour issues that we have been effective, are being effective?
We have seen a decrease in complaints over the last approximately 6 months. There will be a combination of factors, and it would be very difficult if we said we've got the odour cannons working, once the fan is working, once we've had a lot of tightening up around the gas field over the last year, to be honest, which of those might be having an effect. But certainly the complaints have slowed a bit. Yep.
Yeah, that was my thinking, and I just wanted to get that clarity that that is what's happening. And from me personally, and I don't know if you're going to agree, but it seems to be that you can drive around Keneparu up Raiha Street, and it's actually okay. So that's, yeah. I don't know about 2 o'clock at night though, but I just wanted to I just wanted to thank you for the things that you're doing to address this issue, because I know that when we had the gallery full, people had had enough of it, and it was a little bit embarrassing, and even some of the solutions that we proposed. But it seems to me now, in the reports that we're getting, that you're using a combination of solutions, and it's working. So I think that's really good, and I'm really pleased to hear that you want to proactively let them know when things, well, particularly don't have a barbecue on this day. but that's all good, because I think that's good PR for us as a council. So thank you.
It's a fair point, but I also point out that the residents will may feel very differently about that situation.
Just make a comment that Raiha Street is probably north of the landfill, whereas Tawa is south of the landfill, and we get it in our direction. It very rarely goes the other direction.
And that's the perspective of placement.
Yeah.
Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks for this report. It's great. I see on page 39, item 29, that the hydrogen sulfide might be from a source other than the landfill. Do you have any idea of what that other source might be?
What I meant in that paragraph was the source of odour may be gas, but it may be rubbish. It may be, there are a number of sources from within the site that aren't necessarily gas specifically.
And will the new cell alleviate some of the problems that we're having now with now that it's coming lower down the hill there?
Once the new cell is active, then yes, the current cell we're working on is elevated. It's at the southern tip. It's closer to the boundary. Our intention would be to put a final cap on as much of the old cell as we can once cell 3 is active, and that will also help to reduce any fugitive gas coming from the current cell that will be the old cell when we're under 3A.
So do we charge a premium for people outside of Porirua City using our landfill? A lot of that rubbish comes from Tawa, you're probably aware.
There are a number of places from which our rubbish comes from. That is correct, Northern Wellington suburbs, but also as far north as Horowhenua, sometimes even further.
Great, thanks a lot. I have questions about the demolition part, but is that...
Go ahead now, I think it's fine.
So page 38, construction demolition, and I see we've agreed to actually give the plant over to a private enterprise. I thought that we'd agreed to have it operated for us, and we did it because there's a risk to council. What sort of risk is there to council in running such a thing?
Yeah, when we originally came to council and asked for approval to be able to put the facility on the landfill itself, at that stage we'd be looking at calling in somebody to operate it on our behalf, where we would be direct beneficiaries of whatever the market profit was to be at the time. One of the things to address the point about why we might want to exit is just that the market is a little up and down, and it's not our specialist area. What we're looking for is an operator who has direct access to those end markets to be able to withstand the bumps and rises from dealing with such a commodity. That answers the question.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that we might be foregoing a good revenue stream here through nervousness. It's
one of the more risky sectors out there at the moment. It's the same as the recycling picked up off the curbside. Again, rises and falls in how much might be extracted in material-wise.
And just to be clear, Councillor, so we haven't given it away, we're leasing it, so we get the value back. We're not losing any money on the gear itself, so it's a full cost recovered lease.
And let's not also forget that, you know, this facility also will save us money in terms of ETS charges and so forth, that, you know, and the burden that sits on us as well in terms of a rapidly filling landfill.
And it was health and safety that concerned me when I read about the people in the box taking the money for the for the entrance to the tip and being abused and sworn at. Do we take a copy of regios or do we get photographs of the vehicles that are doing that?
No, we don't. That is part, unfortunately, of frontline customer service, and the landfill kiosk is one of those places in council operation where it's faced fair share of abuse. We don't go so far as to take registrations, but we will occasionally make sure that we're aware of anything particularly bad, risk of or threat of physical aggression, for example.
Yeah, I mean, they're great people in that kiosk. They do a hell of a good job and they're always cheery. It seems bloody unfortunate that goes on. But
Sub to that question, have there been any instances that you can recall where a potential user of that space has been either removed, sent off, trespass, anything of that type, and what would have been the rationale behind that?
Yes, I'm aware of one where a customer has been trespassed. I can't recall what year it was. Was particularly bad. If you're interested, I can get more detail of that for the next meeting.
I'm just more hoping that there's a process in place to deal with these types of situations.
So we typically it's the truckies who misbehave on that site, and when it's a truckie, we generally know the trucking company, so we do speak to the owners of those firms, and sometimes we correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but sometimes we say we don't want to see that truckie on site anymore.
Okay. I note that there was a conversation earlier on with Porirua with regards to tipping trailers. Would you like to talk about that and see if you want to get that in here now? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a good idea. So you'll be aware that I raised, I don't know when, in one hui, that there's real concern in the community that those that have tipping trailers, particularly elderly, are not allowed to use them, and that essentially it was because one of the kaimahi at the tip fell in, and what we're hearing from residents is because they didn't follow a process, all the rest of Porirua are having to suffer. And it's becoming a real issue now. So what I was going to ask was, can we have a report of what is going to be done with this? Like, there needs to be some solution where people, one, who have invested in a tipping trailer can use the tipping trailer, and two, that we do need a timeline or a solution to be able to do that, because it is really frustrating, and I was actually at the tip when this happened, and there were a couple trailers that were there. They were tipping trailers, but they were told that they weren't allowed to open the gate, and so they were manually emptying the trailer. And then a PCC truck came and they opened the gate. They were able to just reverse back, empty it out, and then leave. And I was just leaving, and then the people that were in the other vehicles, they followed me and gave me an earful about what had happened. And I accept what they're saying, because why ordinary residents are no longer allowed to tip is because a kaimahi that worked for the council didn't follow health and safety processes and as a consequence, fell into the tip. So all the rest of Porirua residents now suffer. They're not allowed to use it, but Porirua City Council workers can still use it. So if you could just give us a report or something, or some explanation about why that's happening, what our solution is going to be, and how we're going to address it, because it's a bit embarrassing, because it seems like there's an easy fix, and while I understand what happened, it's been put to me that you could drive into, where the face is, where the bulldozer goes in, that cars could just reverse in there, tip, and the bulldozer can then just move it all out into the truck where they put it to. So I'm just trying to find what's happening, because it really isn't good enough that we're doing nothing.
I take the gist from Porirua Kelly's question that it's, if you can respond to that now, please do so. If you feel it would be better to do so as an item attached, as a section attached to the report, then we can have that at the subsequent meeting.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll just respond to one point about the PCC tipping off, and the reason for that is because we know what's actually in the back of the truck. It's a load. The issue arose with respect to the type of load that had caused the accident that had us shut it down in the first place. The PCC load coming from Parks is a little bit different, and we know what's in there. However, it does look a little bit a different rule, if you like. So what I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, can I provide a more full report on the overall situation and outline what we might be able to do about it?
That seems reasonable to me. I think we'll just leave it there for now. Councillor Duncan?
Just to sub to that, you're still allowed to use a tipping trailer at the greenways, don't you?
Correct, yep.
Okay. A point that will be covered in the documentation to come. Sorry. Mayor Baker.
Sub to that, can we actually make sure it comes back with how it's going to change and it's going to happen again, so that actually we get the tipping trailers back? Because I'm sorry, I'm getting bombed all the time. Our example is not correct. Health and safety for these people's backs and everything else. Just because some idiot mucked it up, no one else should suffer. I won't have another conversation, I'm just recording it.
Noted. Porirua Kelly?
So I don't often do this, but thank you, Madam Mayor. Because I'm getting bombarded as well, and it's not right, eh? We need a solution.
Okay, any other questions? I'm going to use the chair to just make a final point, and then we'll close this up and have a vote on it. I think one of the things that I reflect on with regards to the odour issues is that, and I think the line of questioning has been good in regards to this, is that there is still an issue in spite of conscientious efforts by our council and contractors to do a lot of work over many different ways, and there have been some stumbles because of machine failures and so forth. This thing ain't licked yet. And I know that because we haven't got an item here talking about an update to a resource consent application for continued operation of the plant. So, there's however you want to describe it, we may have won a war, we may have won a battle or two, but we haven't won the war on this stuff. So we've still got work to do on there. And I think that's important to reflect back to officers as a consequence of today's session. I'm going to put this to the vote. Sorry. I just gave the last word.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if we were going to go to debate or comment. So it's a bouquet. It's a bouquet, so it's not controversial.
Kua pai.
I just wanted to thank you for the mahi that you're doing with the tyres. And when I read the volumes that we're now dealing with, I don't know whose idea was it, because it was a brilliant idea. Was it Porirua City Council's?
No, it's a government-led scheme, MFE-led scheme.
Really?
But, for councils to sign on to, and a number of us in the region have done that now.
And so what I really wanted to thank you for doing this is that annually we have a Clean the Harbour thing, and the amount of tyres that come out of the harbour is just ridiculous. So this is really awesome.
There's grist for the mill on that as well, in terms of central government wanting to discontinue any additional work on new stewardship regimes for other items. So that's a conversation we can have offline. It's not really pertinent to the landfill, but it's still an important one. Councillor Duncan, you did have your hand darted up a bit. Oh, good. I'm going to put this to the vote to accept. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, abstentions. I believe it's carried. Thank you very much, David. We move on to item 7.3, Wastewater Treatment Plant and Spicer Landfill Financial Report, October to December 2024. I'll move the motion, being that the Joint Committee received the report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Filo. Ian, thank you very much for coming and speaking to this report. Do you have any additional commentary that isn't covered in the document I'll notice?
Through you, Chair. No, thank you. I'll take the report as read. Excuse me. Just to say that it's the half-year report, so it's always an exciting time for accountants to look back on progress in the first 6 months and then consider whether there is adjustments required to the budgets and forecasts for the next 6 months. I do think we are tracking generally well to budget for both joint ventures, the landfill and the wastewater treatment plant. Happy to take questions if that's the case.
Okay, Ian, questions? Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Ian, look, Wellington Water, when the new CE took over, spoke about the plethora of consultants that they deal with, and he wants to get rid of them and get full-time workers on. But I notice in the report, page 51 and 52, in both balance sheets, we lump contract services in with consultants, and I wonder, would it be possible to separate those out?
Can do, yes. Through you, Chair, sorry. Just a recollection of that conversation with the new CE of Wellington Water. I think he was more targeted towards the Wellington Water suite of people, not specifically talking to this. I mean, I can do that. I can pull out the consultants for these entities. I think it's very minor, very minor.
When you say very minor, you're meaning in terms of the quantum compared to the entirety of the organisation that Wellington Water represents?
Yeah, in terms of dollars,
Right.
if I was to pull out the consultants, I'm not sure there's actually, I can't specifically recall, but it's not a big number.
I'll take
Sorry, Mike.
response for Mike.
We can pull the numbers, no problem, but just the consultants referred to in these reports, they tend to be consulting engineers, so giving geotech advice in engineering, as opposed to consultants that you might have in your mind that are kind of more management consulting type. But we can certainly pull a report.
I do, from time to time, looking at reports, think that we are keeping Tonkin Taylor afloat, though, sometimes.
We will be very careful about making any commentary about Tonkin Taylor, lest we get a defamation litigation. That said, it would be entirely reasonable for the next financial report to provide some commentary on that, so it's on the record, and then have a breakdown that brings that out there. Is that reasonable?
Yep.
Okay. Porirua Kelly.
So does
Apologies, I had Councillor Fila first, so then I'll go to you. Sorry.
It was just a quick one. I noticed under capital projects, it's got the 3, but it doesn't have the pump station upgrade at Rukutane Point. So just a quick comment on, if there's not much spent there, or if you could just give some commentary around that, please.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So I am aware that there's a lot of activity going through that kind of planning and design and, the thinking associated with a capital project, which, is not necessarily huge dollars to start with. It's only when you get into the construction activities in a normal capital project, that's when the big dollars are incurred. So I have seen some expenditure, but it's not particularly large to date. So it would be included in the other.
Okay, that's where I thought it was.
Currently.
So is it likely?
So just apologise. I'll let Mike speak, and then I'll come back to you for this episode. Okay?
So if it helps, Councillor, so Rukutane Point is now a major project in the major projects report. So you'll be getting a quarterly report on exactly that when those come to TPK.
Oh, thank you. That's great. That's great to hear.
I'll read it.
Okay, cool. And so this probably won't come into this section of the budget until the scoping and pricing has sort of been done.
I think I've seen some projections that, in the first couple of years, the dollars are actually quite low. It's until, the actual construction hits when the big dollars. We have expressed to Wellington Water that they must work within their capital envelope. So I think they're still, trying to determine their priorities and how to rearrange their budgets to facilitate for that.
Cool. Hey, thank you.
Porirua Kelly.
So can you tell me, does Porirua City Council not employ their own engineers, geotechs, or? Do you not have?
Generally speaking, councils don't have those sorts of engineers on board anymore, with the exception of transport engineers. Generally speaking, they are consulted in.
Okay, so on just following on, in the report, it talked about how, and you mightn't be able to answer this, but you might be, Mike, how work is prioritised. So that the work that is prioritised between Wellington Water and the different councils, and I can't remember where I read it, but where does that happen? I mean, like it sounded from the report, it sounded like there was actually like a hui where you talked about what needed to happen, and you came up with the plan that this is how Wellington Water are going to spend their dollars that they've given for Porirua City Council, and that there's an agreement that this is the mahi that's going to happen. Where does that happen?
So the way it works is Wellington Water presents to us their recommendations for priorities through formal advice that they send to us as officers. This is all public. This is all published on the Wellington Water website. We then give feedback on that, and subject to that feedback, that's what Wellington Water presents to council through their long-term plan. And actually the annual plan as well. So Wellington Water came back to us recently wanting to change the budgets for the long-term plan. But our advice from Porirua City Council was to please stick with that's year 2 of the LTP. So we asked them to stick with the year 2 of the LTP. That's how that process works. That's all published on Wellington Water's website. So there you'll find a list of projects on Wellington Water's website, which are what they believe are the priorities for Porirua City.
So thank you for that clarity, because I thought that was what happens. In the report, it sounded like there was really a genuine partnership between each council and Wellington Water about what is being addressed, and I don't think that happens. I think that Wellington Water, council may direct them to tell them what the priorities are, but I don't think that that's necessarily what happens, and we just need to look around our streets.
I think it's noted.
Thank you. I don't think so.
Noting the point, and I don't want to get this situation where we create disorder by having a difference of opinion between members. That's what politics is. But there is a question there, so we're not going to. I'm not asking officers to respond to that in this instance. However, it should be noted. Any other questions? None. Does anybody want to do debate on this? No? Okay. Then we're going to move to the end here. We're going to square this off. I thank the officers for preparing the report. I note that we will probably we'll be approaching the new financial year with additional challenges that will have to be met and discussed by us as members of the committee. So I'm foreshadowing that there's going to be a challenging corridor in the next meeting, but I expect that you guys will come with some robust explanation and commentary on that. I'm going to move it to be agreed to as, I'll do this properly. How about that? I will now put the motion that we received the report. This motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, abstentions, carried. So I will declare the meeting closed at 3:18 p.m. We will now recite the karakia, everybody together, toru whā. Kia horo te marino, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, he huarahi mā tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora everybody.